That's it, I'm ready. I'm ready.
I played piano first when I was maybe about 9 or 10, and my dad used to sort of get me to listen to like blues, sort of boogie-woogie blues piano stuff, and I sort of just used to listen to Ray Charles records and sort of try and work out all this sort of loose stuff. I never really learned to read music, you know. I always had a bit of a difficulty with being taught stuff. I always preferred to do it on my own. I remember I had like one lesson and I gave up after one lesson because the teacher was telling me I need to work on this finger like for about a year, and I said, nah, I'd rather just play some blues. You know what I mean? I don't want to like just do that for a year. That was actually my first performance I ever did. Actually, was a sort of blues piano thing in school. It was like a talent contest or something like that, and I won it, and I sort of was like playing. And up until then I was really shy and embarrassed about playing in front of people. And then I realised that I liked actually playing on stage a bit. I sort of got into it. I think I was in like one of the first bands at school, like in our age group anyway. And then eventually our guitarist, it wasn't happening with our guitarist, so we got Matt in to play the guitar. So we knew we could play the guitar, seen him around school, didn't really know him too well, you know. He had like a flat top and a shell suit. But he could play the guitar pretty well, and we had like long hair and Ned's Atomic Dustbin t-shirts on.
But you don't have the time, so look the other way.
Came Muse in April '94. We did this gig booked at there's a roller disco in Dawlish Warren, which is near to Timoth. And moments before we went on stage, there's all these people just skating around in this circle, not interested in the band at all. And the guy came on, he said, oh, what are you called? And about 3 seconds before we went on, it was Muse, and he went, all right, here's Muse. Started playing, all these people were skating around. There's a massive gap in front of the stage where no one was standing, and everyone was just skating. It was a really weird moment.
You could be my unintended choice to live my life extended. You could be the
There's nothing to do, do you know what I mean, in the town we were from when you're like 16, you can't really get into the pubs, you can't drink, and there's no really place to go at all, so everyone just ends up hanging down the seafront, getting into fights and doing drugs and getting beaten up by old guys driving Capris, you know what I mean? I think someone said he was surprised that all these bands were happening. So there's actually quite a lot of bands, and there's all this other creative stuff going on as well that seems to be quite positive, and it's like, it was almost because there was nothing else to do that all was coming out of it, and someone said, oh, it's like a mysterious Muse was like hanging around. I think at that time in my life I was all like into all this like mystery stuff, you know. I was like doing all Ouija boards every day and trying to contact dead people, and I was trying to get with this girl who was like a witch, and she was like really hot, and she had a couple of mates who were witches, and they sort of did stuff together, and I sort of thought it was all a little bit cool, and so I think at the time I was quite influenced by that, and I thought the word Muse would have worked as a name.
Started having it seriously when Dennis from Sawmill got involved, and he gave us some free studio time, and basically said, go in, do some demos, and we'll see what happens. And that was the first time we'd been in a studio, proper studio, and been given a chance to record some of the songs properly. Sort of had this idea to sort of just print a limited edition EP and just start playing it around gigs and selling it in gigs, and for the first one sort of sold a little bit. We were selling it mostly at gigs, and then, because the first one did quite well, it sort of sold quite fast. There's only 1,000 copies of each. The second one we put in some independent record shops, and it all sold real quick, and it got in like the independent charts, and so it's just sort of gradually built like that. And then we also got like a little play on the evening session from that EP. And it's around that time where we started building up a bit more of a fan base locally, and then then we actually got a chance to go on tour and tour around the rest of the country, and then get into Europe as well. And a few like American labels sort of got a little bit interested.
few different labels were getting interested, and they start sort of treating you well, and you know, giving you limousines and first-class flights and that sort of thing. You know, so they treat you really well and sort of treat you like you're famous or something.
At the time I had a job, I was painting and decorating. I was doing all these sort of crappy jobs, like painting and decorating and cleaning shit out of caravans and all this sort of stuff. And I was suddenly on a plane, first class, going to New York in a limousine, jumping out and then doing this gig in like New York, and then going down to LA and hanging out at the Oscar ceremony party and going, "Hi, Gwyneth," you know, and all this crap. And it was like, and then going back and painting houses and cleaning shit, and so that was quite a surreal experience.
Yeah, we just did like a few little showcases down in LA, in Santa Monica and in Hollywood. The one we did for Maverick is quite funny because this guy just turned up with, it was in this tiny little rehearsal room, this guy called Guy turned up with like the guitarist from the Sex Pistols and a couple of lawyers, and it's just like us in this room. We played like 2 songs and he went, "Okay, that's it, I want to sign you now." We're like, what's going on? And then what happened is that all these sort of, all these like quite cool independent labels started getting interested, you know what I mean? And that's what I like about labels like Mushroom, Naive from France and Moto from Germany. They're all sort of pretty independent companies that we ended up sort of attaching ourselves to in a weird way. When we first started thinking about the first album, we had a whole load of songs that were done obviously in the past before we got signed. But the rest of the songs, they were like, a few were done in the studio, like Unintended and Sunburn. They sort of happened in the studio at that time.
I wasn't really too worried about what people would think about it. I more just wanted to make something that I knew that I'd like myself, or something I knew that I'd want to listen to. And so I was just putting all my effort into putting something down that I'd want to like, you know, I'd get into. Because then at least I'd know that if it ever did get liked by a large amount of people, it's something that is in me or something from me. And so I always wanted to make the music as personal as possible, and I was always putting as much personal input into it and getting trying to put a lot of emotion into it and all that.
One of the main things we wanted to do with the second album was try and make it sound a bit more like we do on stage, you know. And seeing as, you know, we were doing so much of that after the first album was released, it's obviously a good time to go in and try and do it. Because people always came to gigs and say, "Oh, what you do live on stage is so much better than the album. It's much more full on and more exciting and stuff." So I think we were on the second album trying to get a bit more of that. And I think we're still working on that now. I think on the third album we're just trying to capture what we do when we're on stage, try and get that in the studio. I think I'm not sure if it's because we're a bit nervous or something. I think we were very nervous at first in the studio, and that's probably why it came out a bit soft sounding compared to what it was when we were on stage, when we were a bit more relaxed.
I think most of the first sort of year and a half we spent supporting bands. We did tour with Skunk Anansie and tour with Feeder in the UK, and then did the Chili Peppers in the States. That was really good. I think that was the first time we'd gone out and done like arenas.
Doing a tour with like Chili Peppers and Foo Fighters was a big turning point in our approach to what we do on stage and how we thought about playing live generally. We sort of had it in us from when we first started out. When we first started out, we were playing with our mates. Like when we were 16, it was like really cool, and as everyone getting into it. Then we went through a big sort of period of like about 18, 19, 20, and no one really came to our gigs, and we all became very introverted. You know, I think we became very introverted on stage and very sort of shy and everything. And then when we went out on the Chili Peppers, we were playing like these big arenas, like maybe 15,000, 20,000, some of them 25,000 capacity venues, and the crowd were just like mental, you know. They're just rock, and the more riffs we played, the more heavy we played, the more they got into it.
I love you, man. You're beautiful. This is the coolest. I love you.